share the screen with the PowerPoint. Okay, so welcome to our recruitment event for the 2025-2026 trainees. My name's Jen. I'm the Education and Trainings Officer, and I am sort of helping to facilitate the recruitment process. I also am the person that gets the trainees through their City and Guilds qualification and helps them along the way. So I am the person that will talk you through what the qualification is, and myself and some colleagues are here to chat to about that later on, and also what the whole qualification involves. So what does being a trainee at the Sherbourne Value Project involve? It is very much a practical based role. There's a lot of being outdoors, there's a lot of manual work. So that involves doing habitat management. That can be anything from coppicing trees to helping put things like berms into rivers, to pulling out Himalayan balsam, all sorts of practical outsidey things. There's also a lot of events work, and they, excuse me a minute, my dog's just being a pain in the neck. What? Somebody needs a walk. So there's also a lot of events work. So lots of my colleagues are getting involved in helping to various events that we run, from Riverfest, which is obviously quite large, to some of our smaller events like our regular wellbeing walks. Initially, you'd be looking to help somebody to run those, and then later on, as you progress through that traineeship, you'd be running your own events. We also link up closely with the education team, so working with school visits and things at Brandon Marsh and helping those to be facilitated. You'll get involved in comms and marketing, writing blogs and articles for not just our website, but also for the main trust one. And the main thing is you'll be completing your level 2 City and Guilds in practical conservation. So over the course of the year, it's massively varied. So there are loads and loads of different things you can get involved in. Lots of outdoors work. You need to be prepared for the fact that you will be outdoors in all weathers and all the mud and all the rain and all things in the winter, because most of our practical work takes place over autumn and winter. And you'll be working across a number of sites along the Sherbourne and its tributary streams. So you need to be able to get from one place to another fairly easily. There are lots of opportunities to work across departments, both in the trust, so whether that's education, with our campaigns team, with reserves, and you have lots and lots of time to get out and go and explore what they do. So the current trainees have been out with Nature Force, they've been out with the surveying teams, and you get to know what lots and lots of teams across the trust do, but also our partner organisations. So the council, you might get involved with the NCAP team. Previous years, trainees have spent time doing things like eDNA sampling with the council and people like that. Alongside your salary, which is the National Living Wage salary, you also have a training budget that's available for you to spend as you see fit, according to what your needs or interests are. Now, it might be that you decide you want to do your brush cutter ticket, which we can get that sorted out. You might want to do, so in previous years, we've had people do chainsaw tickets, which are expensive to get. But also training courses for species ID, habitat management, all sorts of different things. You get to flex that and work out what it is as the year goes on as to what you'd like to spend it on. And there's loads and loads of other things outside of the traineeship that you can get involved with. So people have been gone to our campaigns and gone on protests down in London. They get involved with the youth committee and the things that go on there. There's lots and lots and lots and lots for you to get involved in. So where can the traineeships take you? So because it's a practical hands-on position, you will get good experience in the sector, which puts you in a good position to apply for jobs. You've got a year hands-on doing the job. It's not theoretical. It's not a kind of like a theory course with an exam at the end of it. You will actually have done this. And I know that this has helped people get jobs, because our first cohort, it's helped them to get jobs. So our first 2 trainees have gone on to get jobs in the conservation sector. One's a ranger with Coventry City Council. The other is the assistant biodiversity manager at Chester Zoo. And the thing that got them the job was they stood there and they were given a practical task to do. And that practical task involved them choosing tools for a job and going out and doing the job. And the fact that she'd already got all of that and to be able to say, I'll be using this tool for this and this tool for that because of X, Y, and Z meant that they were able to go and get the job. There's also scope to look at ecologist roles, community work roles, surveying type roles, as well as all the practical conservation. So there's loads and loads of scope. You will determine your own route, but it's a really good in the door in the conservation sector. Application help wise, all our applications are anonymised. We can't see names, ages, where you've been, dates, anything like that. And although your CVs are uploaded, the applications are scored on the form that you fill in, not your CV. So please ensure you fill in all sections of the application form and you do so in detail. The deadline for closing is the 11th of July and we'll be interviewing on the 30th. And that interview day will be both kind of your standard interviews, but also practical tasks as well. And we'll be taking 2 trainees on to start mid-September for a 1-year contract. And basically, that's the kind of overview stuff. What I really want to do is introduce you to some of the team and get them to come and have a chat with you. So just kind of like, I'll give you a bit of a heads up as I can see them on the screen. We've got Nicola, who is our fabulous project manager. We've got Sophia, who's a current trainee. We've got Ari, who's a current trainee. We've got Helen, who's our Cultural Heritage Officer. And they will be able to tell you all the things that you need to know about the current traineeships, what their experiences have been like, hopes, aspirations, how we run, all those sorts of things. So far away, you can ask me or you can ask anybody in the team some questions and we'll do our best to answer. Go for it, Poppy.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks for the introduction, first of all. I'd say this looks really exciting. And I just wanted to ask, first of all, Sophia and Ari, how have you been finding it? And what's the biggest challenges that you've been facing? And what kind of things do you have to do to overcome them?
Do you want to go ahead, Sophia?
Yeah, I can go first. So yeah, this year's been great. We've learned so much throughout the year. I'd probably say my niche was more the practical conservation side of things, or surveying, which I've kind of found out now. But I came from a very different background, so that was quite scary at first. And I thought that I would get behind with all of the coursework because I went on holiday to America for 2 weeks at the start of the traineeship, and it was already planned, so it couldn't be helped. And Jen kept saying to me, "Oh no, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll catch up." And I was really fine because the team are great. They're really supportive, and both me and Ari were both worried about whether we would be behind with coursework throughout the course. But the way Jen kind of set it out in your diary, she put like, hand this one in at this date, this one in at this date. So you kind of had a marker of where you needed to work towards, and it's just felt really easy getting through all of that coursework, which is, that's the main thing that you're going to put on your CV, along with obviously the experience at the end of it. So I'd probably say that was a little bit of a challenge, but not really, because you have the support anyway. Another challenge, what I would say is it's definitely worth it, but if you have to travel as well, it can be quite a lot of traveling throughout the year. I come from, well, it usually takes me about an hour to get to Brandon, and I'd say 1,000% it's been worth it for this year, but just be prepared to drive. That would be my advice. Do you want to go, Ari?
Yeah, sure. So I, like Sophia, was from quite a different background. I was working in kind of environmental sales when I applied. So I'd say don't let that put you off if you don't feel like you maybe have the perfect experience. This is really for people who are new to the industry, or trying to get further into the industry. So if you feel like you're not somebody who's trekking through the undergrowth day after day, don't worry, because I wasn't either. I've really enjoyed the community side of things. I've done a lot of education sessions, going out and doing the campaigns. I think Jen mentioned going on marches and things like that. I've taken a lot of those opportunities and just really, really enjoyed it. I guess because of that, one of my pieces of advice in terms of my challenges has been, I've been such a generalist. I've gone and done so many different things, which has been amazing, but it has made trying to choose what I do next a little more difficult. So if you get the sense that something might be your niche, really try to explore that further, I would say. And my other challenge has probably been the physical side of things, just because I wasn't as used to it. So when they say to you, you'll be working in all weather, you'll be in the river, definitely do consider that is a lot of hard work. But I'd say, there's adjustments that can be made if needed. So don't let it put you off applying. If there's a conversation that needs to be had there, I'm sure you can have it.
Brilliant, thank you so much.
Cutting down the trees though.
I can imagine.
It's quite satisfying cutting trees down.
Oh, absolutely.
Can I just follow up on what you said, Sophia, about the coursework as well? Is that something that is like set out as modules, or is there a bit of flexibility to see where you'd like to specialise in certain areas?
So kind of a bit of both. There is set modules that we do that Jen advises, but you do have some scope to choose different ones as well. What I would say is how Jen kind of explained it to us as well, is do what you need to do, and then if you've got more time at the end, then do the more things that you might like to do, because at the end of the day, you're still getting all of the hands-on experience without doing like the knowledge questions about it, and putting more workload on yourself in that way. You're still going to get that qualification at the end of it. So yeah, it's lots of different modules. A lot of it's more like question and answers. So they're not quite essay questions. They're not quite that long usually.
No,
sometimes they go a bit longer.
Kind of like there's a few core modules which are kind of around health and safety, looking after the environment, your own progress, those sorts of things. So those are kind of core ones. And then there's some ones that we do for everybody. So there's managing vegetation. A lot of people do the education module. There's various ones that you can choose from. So there are some choice options in there, and they consist of a mixture of kind of observed work. So we'll come, there's myself and Helen, and then we've got Joe and Alex. We're all assessors, and we will observe you doing something. And it's not kind of unannounced, it's all planned and talked about beforehand. So we'll observe you. Say, for example, Alex might observe you coppicing trees, so you'll know what you're going to be doing. You go out there, you do the coppicing, and Alex will then write that up as an observation, and that then ticks off the standards. There's no exams, there's none of that worry. It's all very much practical. What do we see? Do we observe you doing the right things? Can we tick that off as evidence? And then we upload it. So that although there is written questions, there's no kind of like, oh, you can only have one go. You can send them over to me, or whoever's assessing that unit will check them. We'll give you some comments like, have a think about doing this way, because they are some of them are quite vague. The qualification is a bit of an amalgam of a few old ones, and sometimes the questions can look a little bit weird, but I will say to you, that's a bit vague. Have a think about it this way, and then you can amend them, and we can go backwards and forwards as many times as we need to. And then once we're happy that you've got everything that you need to do, then we just upload them to our portal. Any certificates that you get, so you might already have in your work, you might already have some certificates, any of the ones that you gain along the way, so brush cutter certificates, even things like first aid, those things all get scanned in and uploaded, and they all count towards your qualification. So it's very practical, it's very hands-on, it's not kind of like a course with exams or anything like that.
What me and I did quite a lot as well, just to add on to that, is we either wrote up witness statements from things that we did, so activities we might have done if we went out with, say, the reserves team and did something with them, or the education team, because they're quite busy, then you'd send it over to the person, they read it, make any amendments, and then they'll sign it off as like a witness statement. Or our team, so Jen, Joe, Alex, and Helen, they'll always write them up for you anyway, so it takes a lot of pressure off. Yeah, it's really, really helpful.
But a question, what's a typical working week? Is there such a thing as a typical working week for us? Probably not. Each of our weeks does have one day we're in for a team meeting. So that is one thing that is typical. Sometimes it's online, sometimes it's in person at Brandon. We try and get together in person just because it's nice to see other human beings, isn't it? So that is one thing that kind of carries on. But your typical week, I don't know whether Ari and Sophia will agree with me on this one. Your typical week will involve 2 or 3 days where you're out doing something. You might be helping Alex and Joe doing practical work. You might be out on survey force. You might be out with nature force. You might be out doing various different things on courses or whatever it is you've decided to do. You probably have a day at home where you're doing admin and doing your qualification stuff, and a day which is kind of meetings filled. And sometimes it'll be a mix of it. You know, we'd be out in the morning, meetings in the afternoon. But I'd say it's probably a fair split between out and in, and probably slightly more to the out, sort of 60-40 being out to being in the office. We do work on an agile basis. So most of our time, if we don't, you know, we can be in the office. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to network, but we also can work from home. So out of the days, I tend to be in the office 1 or 2 days a week, and then I'm out on sites and doing things another day or 2 a week. And I might be at home a day or 2 a week, depending on how my week looks. Like next week, I'm at home pretty much no days a week. So it just depends on how busy you are and what you're doing that week, but it can be really varied. But I would say be prepared for the fact that you would be working some evenings and some weekends as well. So I run junior rangers. There are work parties that happen at weekends. There are quite a lot of evening events that we do as well. So you won't be involved in all of them by any stretch, but the more you do get involved in, the better it is, really. So just be prepared. But obviously there is toil available for that. So if you work on a Saturday morning coming to junior rangers, then you accrue some toil that you could take off another time.
The other thing that I'd say is that average week will look very different at different times throughout the year, and because of that you kind of have times to recuperate as well, which is nice. During school holidays, for example, your average working week is probably going to look like a lot of school sessions, unless, you know, there's a distinctive reason why you don't want to do those, if there's something you're more interested in. But there is some expectations of when the team will need help with certain things. So yeah, winter, a lot more winter works. That's your average week. Summer is event season at the moment, so we're at Godiva at the weekend, so that'll be good fun. I'm doing a Coventry Pride event one weekend in the summer. There's lots of different things going on all the time.
Andrew, do you want to ask your question, then we'll go to the chat? Is that all right?
Yes, of course, yeah. You mentioned that you have different community partners, and you mentioned like Coventry City Council and that kind of thing. Could you just tell us some of the others that you work with?
So our partners for the project, because we're a National Lottery funded project, we have partnerships across Coventry and the local area who are sort of on our board. So Coventry City Council, Severn Trent, Coventry University, Historic Coventry Trust, Sherbourne Valley Churches, Warwick University. I think they are, aren't they, as well?
And
Not so much.
Trent.
And actually, we should really include the National Trust now, because we do quite a lot of work at Charterhouse. So the National Trust are kind of coming on board as a partner as well. But it's the council, Severn Trent, Coventry University that we work with kind of most out of those partners. So lots and lots and lots of cross-party working. I don't know if that's answered your question, Will, about the communities or the public that we work with. I might need a bit of clarification on that about the communities, the public we work with. All sorts of different communities and public. I don't know if you want to chip in on this one, Helen, because you do a lot of the community and public stuff.
Yeah, so we work with lots of groups already, lots of university students, lots of community groups. We're always looking at working with more and more. So, you know, if you've already got contacts and, you know, there are certain things that you're interested in or certain groups that you're interested in working with, then we're definitely up for that. I like you to get really involved in the events side of things. So I like you to come up with an event something that you're passionate about, and then go ahead, and I will help you as much as you need me to, and we'll look at risk assessments, and we'll look at kind of the insurances and making sure that you've got everything in place for it, and then then we just go ahead and go for it. So I think Ari and Sophia have both been running events from quite early on, really. If you want to talk about either of those with the communities you've worked with.
Yeah, I've, like Helen said, there's been a lot of encouragement to pursue your own interests. So I was interested in interfaith events because I'd done philosophy at uni and it was something that I hadn't seen a lot of but really wanted to do. So I ran one in Coventry. And what I really liked about the experience was that Helen sat me down and said, right, how can we learn from this? Think about what went well, what went badly, and what you'd like to do in future. So I've now taken all of that learning and I'm running it again, and I'm hoping to make it, you know, kind of bigger and better. But that's, you know, quite a niche that I was interested in, and there was never any, oh, well, we're not quite sure about that. That was an absolutely please go for it.
I kind of haven't been as into running the events as Ari has, but I have been running one of the wellbeing walks at Charterhouse. So regularly, the first Friday of every month, I'll run a wellbeing walk and kind of organise. Usually, go with the flow with how they want it to run with the participants. We've got a few regulars as well, that have some ideas of activities that we can kind of loosely bring in there that help them connect to nature. So it's a really nice one to do, and I think potentially the team would like those to carry on through the remainder of the kind of project, because it is only an hour once a month. It does usually overrun, but it's a nice event to carry on with. Yeah, but there is also one that's kind of in the pipeline with Helen, and we've been looking at connecting different communities that wouldn't necessarily be connected to bat surveying, so to try and get them kind of interested in that. And it involves partnering with another kind of charity that supplies you with these bat box recorders, and they just put them in their house or their by a window or in their garden. They leave it there for a few days, or I think it's just over one night, isn't it, Helen? And then we send it back to them, the SD card, and then all of that data gets taken in, so they get an idea of what bats are in that area. So it's a really nice project to try and connect people and to try and get that negative view of bats kind of got rid of, because it is still very much out there. When we do community events, Helen's got some bat buttons that people can listen to and see what the different bats sound like. And so many people think that they get stuck in their hair. They still think that they're going to get diseases if one flies over their head, or they're going to get bitten, or and they're actually really nice animals. So yeah, that should be an exciting one.
Yeah, you've also done things like pond dips and sweep netting. Yes, you've done loads of events.
And one of the questions that's in there is like, what's been your highlight from the year? So,
you want to go first, Harry?
Oh, I'm just trying to think because there's so many. It's actually really difficult to narrow it down.
You go, yeah, or you can think of something, I'm sure.
I think I probably have to split it into two and say that one of them has been the training budget, and that has allowed me to go and have some really unique experiences, one of which Helen and I went on a beaver course, and I got to see, it was in an enclosure, but the enclosure was a whole nature reserve, so it felt like seeing a beaver in the wild, and that was fantastic. Just a real pleasure, and learning so much about them as well. And the other highlight was I've been really interested in campaigns, and done some work with our campaigns officer, and I got to go down to London and go to Parliament and watch. There's been so many environmental debates recently. I am losing track slightly, but it was a nature bill being debated, and that was amazing to see environmental politics happening live.
We've also been able to get involved with the Wild for Water campaign that the trusts are running at the minute, and craftivism, which was a really nice thing to do. We were like, we can't believe we're getting paid to do this. Paint a bird box, and then they went off to the MPs to try and encourage them to rethink the planning and infrastructure bill, to hopefully make things better for nature. But going back to the question, I'd probably say my highlight, I think I have a couple again. Me and Ari went on the Great Crested Newt training, which is probably the best course that I've been on this year. If you are interested in newts, I'd definitely recommend that one, in Peterborough. I've been on other courses that were the same price, and they weren't to the same level as that one was, with the amount of surveying experience that you got, and it was just a really cool reserve as well, because it used to be a brickworks, so the topography is really different to any of the other reserves. And then the other thing I'd say is I came from a veterinary background, and it was quite a difficult environment at times. And I would say another highlight is just how amazing everyone at the trust is. And it makes me a bit emotional, because they're just like such a brilliant team. Everyone's really helpful and everyone's really lovely. So anyone that is lucky enough to work with Warwickshire Wildlife Trust, I think, yeah, it's a great place to be.
I was going to jump in at that stage and say that I've only been in the role for a few months, so Ari and Sophia were already in place when I started, and it's been a pleasure seeing the level that they're at with the traineeship, because it's what the traineeships allows people to do, develop and mould their own year. But my highlight from doing this job is actually the team working and the team bonding that goes on is amazing and quite unique, I think, to this job, in that once a week we try to get into the office for the team meeting, and afterwards they will all sit and have lunch together and then take a wander around the reserve and just talk about nature as they're going round, and that's how they spend the lunch break, and it's really a really lovely place to work.
We have many a wander around at lunchtime, don't we? And if we're lucky in the winter, yeah, we bring mealworms, and we've got like hand-tamed robins and stuff. In terms of what was it? I'm going back through some questions. The average split in terms of weekend work or weekday hours, it varies seasonally massively for me, and I think probably Helen, you'd probably say the same. So it might well be that during the winter time you're doing more of a standard sort of 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, maybe the odd bit of weekend here and there, depending if you're on rota for doing something like the Junior Rangers, which is only once a month, so it really wouldn't be very often that it would happen, because it'd be me that does that most of the time, plus one other person, or the odd sort of weekend work party, or any courses you're on. But then in the summertime it tends to get a bit busier. So I know Helen's been really busy with events at weekends and taking out events to the Herbert Museum and to Charterhouse opening weekend, and we've got Godiva Fest coming up, and we've got lots and lots of weekend things on then. And I'm busy doing evenings with cubs and brownies and courses and all sorts of things. So there are quite a lot of more weekends and evenings for me now than perhaps there would be in November. So on average, when we work a 35-hour week, if you go over that, you get your toil, and you can take that back. So it should even itself out over the year as well. In terms of portfolios and presentations, we don't really do portfolios and presentations. The qualification works as a very practical kind of like observations, and then there are a series of what they call underpinning knowledge questions, which Pete is kind of joins in with the practical. So what you've learned doing your practical, you then do the questions on. So in terms of public outreach and education work, there is public outreach and education work, but not in terms of like visiting. So we work with lots of places, we work with lots of community groups, but we don't kind of go out, we're not door knocking and things like that. In terms of the aims of the project, it's really good, really useful to go look at our website. So the idea is to raise public awareness of and consciousness of the river, bring it back to the public's eye, because obviously it's coveted in the city centre, so a lot of people aren't really aware of it, but then also to improve the river and the areas around it for nature and for the people that live there as well, to connect them back to that river a bit more. Catherine, you've got your hand up.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah, absolutely.
It's very noisy in this room. We've got 3D printers going off and all sorts happening. So thanks for this. This has been really useful and interesting. Just sort of going through to sort of thinking about sort of recruitment stuff. What are the most important things, I suppose, are you looking for in potential recruits for this project?
It's very difficult to come across on applications, I suppose. Yeah. But a lot of it's not necessarily about the experience that you've got with conservation. It's looking for the right attitude, the right willingness to get stuck in, that somebody's happy and willing to be outside, and that they're willing to get stuck into a million and one different things, because none of us have a typical day, none of us have a typical week. We all muck in together. We're very much a kind of cross-working team. So as well as I am doing the qualification with the trainees, but Helen does lots with the trainees. I do a lot with Helen. I'm also doing a lot with Joe and Alex, and we're all sort of here, there and everywhere supporting each other. So it's a very mixed role like that. You are very much in a capacity of kind of like working across the whole team. So you won't be focusing on one thing at all at any one time. Partners helping to oversee the project. National Lottery oversee the project. They're our main funder. But then obviously on our board, we've got Cov City Council, Severn Trent, Cov University, Sherbourne Valley Churches, National Trust, HCT. So those are the ones that will come to our board meetings, and we're talking to them. So they're helping us and we're helping them at the same time. So those are our things. Yeah, if you go into Godiva, come along and find us. We're in the family area, along with Cov City Council and a couple of other people. Come along. Helen, you're going. Ari's going, Sophia's going. There's quite a few. Nicola, you're there for a bit of time as well, aren't you? Just come along and talk to us. So if you're in Godiva this weekend, just come along and say hi and have a chat. We're there Saturday and Sunday, so there'll be somebody there, during the day all day. And if you come up with any questions in the next week or so, just fire me an email. I've had somebody who couldn't make tonight, so I said I'd send them the recording. But equally, just ping me an email and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. Obviously, I can't tell you what to put as answers to the questions, but I can kind of give you some guidance as to, what sort of things, if you're struggling with a question, what sort of things you might want to think about. I hope that helps.
In terms of what the team are looking for as well, me and Sophia had both previously volunteered for the trust, and that definitely wasn't the only factor. But what I would say is, if it doesn't happen for you this time, don't let it discourage you, and please do look for opportunities to get into conservation. It's definitely not an easy thing to do if you're working full-time volunteering, but there are opportunities out there, and it's something that we're trying to impress upon communities, is there's lots of different ways of learning and showing that you're passionate. So yeah, I actually applied to lots of conservation roles before I got this one, a couple with Warwickshire Wildlife Trust even, and I had a few knockbacks. So there is no perfect candidate. there's lots of lovely people that will apply. Unfortunately, as it's the last year potentially for the project, fingers crossed there's going to be more funding and we'll see it keep going, but there will be certain things that they need for that last year.
Go on, Poppy.
Thank you. That's really insightful as well, I just wanted to say. But I was just wondering, along with the overarching aims of obviously maintaining the river and connecting with the wider community in the area, I was wondering if there's any other projects that are coming up that we're all working towards together collectively, or is it more focused on the events that are quite seasonal, as you've said, with like the school visits and things like that?
Well, in terms of like the large scale works, I think most of our large scale works, so the river improvements in Lakeview Park are now finished and just going through snagging. So that was a huge project in terms of some river restoration work, digging ponds, scrapes, renaturalising the river there. The Charterhouse work is done. We've got some work that's going on with Joe and the catchment tributaries. So there'll be quite a lot of practical work. So we're doing upper course natural flood prevention, basically. So there's a lot of natural flood prevention work using things like leaky barriers, amending ditches, that kind of thing, that's helping to reduce the rapidity of the flow from the upper course into the Sherbourne. So there's a lot of work that'll be going on over this autumn and winter with Joe. And I think Alex is going to be helping out with some of that as well, kind of working out how we can reduce what they call the lag time. So if we get a heavy rainfall, the time it takes for that rainfall to get into the river and get into Coventry to reduce the potential flood risks. So that's the kind of the more river restoration side of things. Obviously there's the event side of things, there's the education things. What kind of impact, Ed's put on here, would we expect trainees to have on helping the environment? You'd be getting well stuck in. You might be involving things like removing invasive species. So I know Kai, who was a previous trainee, spent a lot of time in the winter removing a lot of cherry laurels and box honeysuckles in one of the sort of small woodland areas. You might be doing things like helping to manage and plant hedgerows and trees. You may well be doing some coppicing. You'll be doing, vegetation management. You may then be doing things like brush cutting, pulling balsam in the summertime. I can't think of anything else. Trainees, jump in on me. What other things have you been up to in terms of like the practical side of things as well?
It was cool getting involved.
Sorry, guys.
Well, it was quite good getting involved with the water bowl stuff. So we were placing coir rolls with one of our colleagues from another team. That was his project, into like canals and along rivers, so that it gives water voles habitat along those areas and connectivity as well. So that was hard work, though. They're so heavy, those sausages, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they call them sausages, but they're like coir rolls, like coconut husk. But that was really nice getting involved with that, and you felt like you were directly helping a species as well. What would you say, Ari?
Yeah, I'd say similarly, there's quite a lot of kind of random call outs from the reserves team where they're like, oh, we've got this really cool thing going on that we want other people to see, or we desperately need help with this, and keep an eye out for those opportunities. So we did a similar one where we were creating deadwood habitat for willow tits, I think it was, and that was good fun.
That was a team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that was North Warwickshire kind of way.
Yeah, and the other one that I really enjoyed was going out with the Rivers team on a golf course and riding around on a golf cart most of the day, planting trees. That was quite fun. That was a nice day. There's lots of different habitat management to get involved in.
You also, I don't know if it was when I was it might have been when I was volunteering and we were putting berms into the river, but it is the type of thing we do as well. But I volunteered with the Tame team before I started, before I got the traineeship, and we got to ride on the back of a tractor trailer on the way back up. So that was fun as well.
Yeah, and you've been doing loads of things like survey force and things as well, haven't you? So you've been learning lots of species ID and going out with our surveying team and our survey manager, who started out life as a trainee at the trust. So she's a career changer, changed in her 30s, was a lawyer, came across and did the traineeship, and she's now our surveying and monitoring manager. So she runs the survey team and is the font of all knowledge when it comes to plant ID. And it's brilliant going out, because you go out with a team of volunteers. So a lot of our volunteers are spectacular. They know so much, and you get to know so many people from going and doing those sorts of things and working across different teams. And then, you know, like your plant ID, I reckon you've gone from 0 to 100 this year, haven't you?
You learn so much from the volunteers as well, because even though they're volunteers, they've got so much knowledge.
They are amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, and I got to do with Alexis the other week as well, damselfly training, which was really cool. So a bit more species ID stuff too.
Any more? I'm just trying to go back through. What's the end of the project? Species. Oh, so in terms of species we want to encourage in the end goals, one of the things that Alex is desperate to really encourage, and this is what the river restoration work is for, is to get trout back on the Sherbourne. So we really would love to see the water quality and the quality of what we call the hydrogeomorphology. So like the bottom of the river, what's in it, how that is working, so that you've got lovely clean gravels and good spawning areas for those trout species to come back up the river. We know there are salmon on the Avon, we know there are salmon on the Severn, but they're not coming up this way, and certainly trout species, there's plenty of trout on the Avon. Really good to see them back in the Sherbourne. And then also it'd be great to have things like water voles again. Lakeview Park used to have lots and lots of water voles, they've gone. You know, the idea is that we try and create these habitats in these areas, particularly in places like Lakeview Park and Charterhouse, which can support those species, you know, going forward. Gareth said he wants a wetland downstream near Whitley. You know, well, that's perfect, because that's storage. So yeah, a wetland downstream near Whitley is bang on in terms of flood storage and slowing that flow down. Which species would benefit birds wise, Ed? Again, it's kind of as many kind of aquatic birds. Kingfishers, definitely, supporting more of those fish species, but we're getting things like egrets on the river and things like that as well now, so supporting those. Poppy?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask on the practical side of it. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of the maintenance around the river and things like that. But I was also wondering, is there a lot of surveying work and the monitoring work going on, as well as the general physical upkeep of it?
One of the things that we have said is going to be quite an important part of this next year is looking at what we call post-project surveying. So we had surveying done before we'd done things like the Lakeview work and the Charterhouse work. So we look at what was the state of things beforehand. So we do things something called morph. So what was the river like before? What was the habitat like before? What sort of species have we had? Then we've done the work, and then a year later or 2 years later, what has the impact of that been? And how can we then change things, upgrade things, tweak things so that it has that benefit? So there will be potentially quite a lot of, you know, butterfly, bird. Certainly we do a lot of river flies, so invertebrate sampling, those sorts of things.
Brilliant, thank you.
Does anybody else, would adverse weather conditions affect how the project progress? Probably not now, because the major groundworks are now done, and poor Alex had to battle with the joys of a very wet autumn and very soggy season in Lakeview Park, getting the ponds dug and things like that. But yes, it can affect things, but hopefully I think we're over that hump now. If everybody's sort of done with questions, just wait and see on the chat. But yeah, good water and windproofs, absolutely necessary. You will need the things like boots. You can claim back the cost of that out some of your traineeship budget and things as well. We would provide some branded gear, so you'll get, you know, t-shirts, hoodie, coat on top of that. But yes, waterproofs and windproofs, we live in them. You live and die by good quality boots. Poppy?
Thank you again. I was just wondering about, we spoke earlier about there's a lot of travelling aspects to it. I was wondering, is this a regular thing which we do, and are there multiple reserves we go to, although it's based at Brandon Marsh, or is it kind of branching out in another direction?
Although head office is Brandon Marsh, and we do sometimes go to some of the other places, so Hams and Parkbridge, which are other our centres, our sites are not reserves that the trust owns. So they are places that are mainly owned by the council. So Lakeview Park, Gup Hill and the area around there, and Cowden Wedge are all Cov City Council owned sites. And because we're doing work on all of those, we can be all over the place. So today we've been at Charterhouse. Next week I'm at Cowden Wedge, Charterhouse and Lakeview, all within the space of 2 or 3 days. So yeah, you are kind of moving between the different sites, and then it's part and parcel of being on a multi-site project that you are kind of moving between places quite a lot. I know for some people
Keeps
there's
it nice
less
and
of that
varied
travelling.
then.
Yeah, it's really varied, and you'll come to have your own little favourite sites and your own little favourite corners of sites that you just really, really love. Some people love bits of, the Lakeview Park thing, because other people really love Charterhouse. Everybody's got their own little favourite gem of a site.
Lovely, thank you.
I would say in terms of travel, my car has become my best friend this year. It's actually really increased my driving confidence, because I was terrified of driving really before the traineeship, but just going out so many different places every day has really gotten me used to it. So that's another good life skill picked up. Some trust staff members don't have a car, but it will probably limit your opportunities. Some of the reserves are not accessible via public transport, including Brandon.
Yeah, we have had a trainee without a driving licence before. They got the driving licence through the during the traineeship, but it did make it quite difficult in terms of like picking up lifts and things. The good thing was that trainee lived in Cov and was able to get around on buses and things like that. So they were living fairly local to some of the sites, and actually used to cycle quite a lot of them as well. So until they got their driving license. So it is doable, but it does make it a lot more tricky, particularly when you're going to do practical work or you're running an event and you've got to take a lot of kit with you. So yeah, there's quite a lot of kind of lugging and shifting as well along with it. The trolley that lives in the garage, we have a garage where we store all of our kit, and there's a trolley in that we tend to put our stuff in. Take it. Your trolley becomes the best friend. So yeah, I mean, if everybody's got questions, anybody got any more questions? And if not, then I can say we'll stop recording. And then if anything comes to mind in the next couple of days, oh darn it, should have asked that, just drop me an email, and I will very, very happily respond. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for coming, guys. It's been really, really nice to meet some of you. And I can't say put names to faces because I don't know what your applications are, because there's no names on them. But it'd be really nice to kind of then tally them up as and when we get down to interview stage. And hopefully we'll see you then.
Sorry, I've got one more question.
Thank you all so much.
Oh. The email is on the advert. It's my email address. I'll pop it into the chat for you.
Has another person got their hand up as well? Have you got a question? We can't hear you.
We can't hear you. You're on mute, I think. Oh, can't hear you at all.
Maybe
very, very quiet.
You could maybe type it in the chat. Maybe.
Yeah, try typing it in the chat. Sorry, yeah, I can sort of hear a noise. I sort of hear a little bit of speaking, but not. It's really quiet. Is it possible to be too old or less able? No. Absolutely not. Age is a state of mind. Helen originally came to us as an applicant for a traineeship, but actually ended up getting an officer's job role with us. And I'm a career changer in my 40s. There's no such thing as too old. It's all about attitude.
I'm 35, so yeah.
I think
But
in
not
terms
about
of
that. It's very. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a place of work that is more inclusive than the trust. Actually, we are massively pro inclusivity of every type. And if things need adapting, things need adapting. So say for example I had somebody who was dyslexic and needed some adjustments for doing the qualification, and well then I'm a teacher and I can put those adjustments in. We can work around whatever it is we need to work around.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, something that I think was taken into account, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, but in terms of there being 2 trainees, I think there is some consideration into how you'll complement each other and how you can build each other up as well. So if there's one person that's less able to do the physical stuff, well, the other person might get more involved in events, or surveys are quite often a bit slower working, and that kind of thing. So there's definitely opportunities for that. Sophia is fantastic at the physical side. I'm dyspraxic. I struggle with it a little bit, but it's never made me feel like I couldn't be involved if I didn't want to be.
And there's so many different routes and so many different things you can do, even within the qualification. There's surveying units, there's practical units, there are kind of like community ones which are a bit more tricky, but there's education stuff, there's loads of things. So you can just drive whichever direction you want to go.
And also most of our volunteers who do the physical stuff, they're retired.
Yeah.
And they get on with it and they do an amazing job.
Yeah, and some of them are really young. Some of them are kind of like, we get our volunteers who are tiny and they're like 10 and they're yanking the balsam up, and then somebody's twice their size and they're pulling the stuff up. So there's no limitations really. It's entirely up to what you want and your own capabilities and what you want to drive in terms of your career. Brilliant. Well, if anybody else has got any questions, then wave at me now. But if not, then I've popped my email address into the chat. It's also the email address that's on the advert. So please do drop me one. Drop me an email if you just think, oh, Lordy, I forgot what I wanted to ask, or, oh, I'm not so sure about this thing on the application form. Please just contact me and we will do our best to help. We'll pop along to Godiva this weekend if you're there anyway. Come and wave at us and say hello in the town.